This will be a very quick video just talking about my thoughts and realizations on the project of creating a content management system today. I haven't worked on it very much today, maybe, half an hour, 45 minutes. But one of the things that I was working on was a setup wizard. So if I delete this settings.json file, in the absence of that file, and provided that the web.config file is set to allow setup, which it is here, as you can see in the top left, when I go to any web page on this site, it'll redirect me to a setup wizard, which you see here. So this setup wizard is intended to have you provide database connection information as well as enough information to set up an administrative user, and then that will be used as the basis for creating the database, creating the tables, inserting things like the administrative role, inserting things like a home page. And from there, you'll be able to have access to the CMS. So I have it set up right now so that it is actually writing a settings.json file when I go to this page. So if I just reset, you see the toolbar appears here, and now I have access to the CMS. So the most important thing that I did today is I got rid of the permissions module because I don't think it's necessary as its own module or a specific classification. I think that permissions are implied by the relationship between users and content, and that relationship is roles. So I'll give an example. So I just mentioned that in the setup wizard, the initial setup of the website, that the homepage is automatically created. So the homepage already exists. So a question might be, who has permissions to create pages? Well, in addition to administrators, when you're on a page, in the pages module, so let's say I'm in this literal module in the back end of the CMS, once it's written, there will be a section here that says which roles are allowed to create child pages. And it's that will determine who is allowed to create pages in that particular context. And similar with things like content. Who is allowed to create content? Well, that's going to be a function of the modules themselves and the pages. So for each module, there will be a list of roles that is allowed to create content using that module as a template, as a general rule. But then also on pages, there will be an attribute or a property that defines which roles are allowed to edit that page. So if you're allowed to edit a page and you're allowed to create or edit a module of a particular type, then you are allowed to create content, and by extension, you should also be allowed to create media. So let's talk about another example. Who's allowed to delete media? Well, I would say that's also very simple with a couple of well-defined rules. So one rule would be that administrators can delete media, or the literal user, not the role, but the user that created a specific piece of media can also delete it. So either administrators or the creator. But there's a second rule, which is the media must not be used anywhere, because we don't want to create or introduce broken links or broken references. So I think that with just those two simple rules, we can make it very well implied who has the permission to delete media without having to break that out as a separate thing. So anyway, that's my big news for the day, is I got rid of the permissions module because I believe that it can be implied by, good solid logic and the relationship between content and users, which will be manifested by lists of roles. I also just reordered the tiles here, so I figured these three are kind of related as being like system related things, and then users and roles are somewhat coupled. But I moved roles over to the right to be in between users and these four, because that's what roles is. It's the bridge between users and these four. And then these four just represent the templates and literal instances of content that you can see and interact with. So I've reordered the tiles and I got rid of the permissions module. This doesn't actually make the project any simpler. It just gets rid of unnecessary classifications and unnecessary modules. But I'm beginning to realize that this is a more complicated project than I thought it would be a week or two ago when I first figured I'd do this. But I'm going to keep at it. So thank you for listening.